A brown book, foxed and broken-spined, the leather back of the binding almost gone. Maybe a teacher used it. Maybe some students passed it around. The rear cover notes that it's one of the National Geographical series and that these books have been used with great success in schools of every state in the Union, and their circulation is constantly increasing. Look at any page of this book long enough, say the little woodcut on page 39, featuring a tall ship, a mighty whale, men exploded from their narrow boat and suspended above the waves, captioned, "Whale Fishing in the Northern Seas," "Whalers of Massachusetts," "Perils of Whaling," "Icebergs," and a whole world opens up. Characters appear. Lives suggest themselves. How that happens, both to me and to other writers, is what I mean to talk about here. Not a history of one writer, me, but some thoughts about how and why any writer, including me, might make fiction from such scraps of history as that worn brown book. I often write fiction set in times and places other than my own, fiction rooted in facts, the facts shaped by story and character. Partly, that's because I have a scholar's interest in science and history without the corresponding intellectual stamina and skill. As a young woman, I went briefly to graduate school first in zoology and then in history, but was quickly appalled by the actual work required and dismayed by my dislike of the methods. Partly, it's a matter of temperament. I don't like writing about myself, and although beautiful books have been made by writers drawing exclusively on autobiographical material, a first novel touching on family stories taught me that this wasn't my path. Where then was I to look for material? Last spring, I watched a phoebe try to build a nest on a half-inch ledge over my front door. All my husband and I noticed at first was a smear of mud on the top of the ledge and scraps of wet vegetation littering the porch. Twice, I threw the bits away. Finally, we realized that a bird, a phoebe we learned from her call, was ferrying over those strands of moss and lichen and trying to glue them with spit and mud on a spot far too small to support them. When my husband nailed a scrap of shingle to the ledge, a compact mud nest lined with threads of grass, moss, hair, fur, and feathers appeared the next day. 3 nestlings soon followed. No part of this site, or of what I read to understand what was happening, would have seemed like promising material for fiction when I was young. Then it did. The biggest change in my writing life. Over the course of my first few novels, I learned to reach outward into the enormous richness of the world, and also backward into the past beneath our present,